Just ahead, accusations flying. Both Democrats and Republicans call the other racist at the Texas Capitol before approving new congressional maps. What lawmakers say is coming next in their political battle.
My baby girl is still missing.
Emotional testimony as parents who lost campers in the Central Texas floods speak out at the Capitol. We'll look at the bills lawmakers are advancing to prevent another deadly disaster. And ending the speculation why Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick announced his re-election again after President Trump endorsed him. Good morning, I'm Jack Fink. Get your fix for Texas politics. Eye on Politics starts now. Hello and welcome to Eye on Politics. Another busy week at the Texas Capitol to tell you about. We begin with the drama and debate over the newly drawn congressional maps that will produce 5 new Republican majority districts in Texas at the expense of Democrats. Governor Greg Abbott will sign legislation approved by the House and Senate.
A quorum is present.
Monday, the Texas House established a quorum for the first time in 2 weeks after Democrats left Texas to block the new maps. That set the stage for the bill to come to the House floor. Democrats accuse Republicans of violating Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. Republicans insisted they followed the law. The U.S. Justice Department says it prohibits against discrimination and voting applies nationwide to any voting standard, practice, or procedure that results in the denial or abridgment of the right of any citizen to vote on account of race, color, or membership in a language minority group. Section 2 is permanent, unlike other portions of the act. The debate sparked tense moments and accusations of racism from both parties.
You prevented this body from acting. So you keep interrupting me.
The merits of the bill, sir. Merits of the bill.
No.
This is about racism. And if you can't hear it from them, then hear it from me. As a white woman and a daughter of a man of privilege, to stand here as a 50-year-old woman and know that we now go back in time. So let's talk about cowardice and cheats.
The racist rhetoric is old. It is seriously stale and long overplayed. Newsflash: Democrats do not own minorities in Texas. Republicans are the majority. So it's not the people of Texas who are racist, it is you.
But the result was never in doubt as the Republican majority in the House approved the new maps after about 8 hours of debate.
88 ayes and 52 nays. House Bill 4 is finally passed.
Republicans cheered, including Representative Mitch Little of Louisville.
Thrilled. For the first time, Republicans have united. They've been courageous in bringing this to the floor. It was necessary. I've heard a lot of concerns about racism and exploitation of voters. Here's the bottom line. Democrats are only concerned about those things when they're not in charge. In California and Illinois and Massachusetts, they absolutely redistrict and gerrymander to their benefit. Here in the Republican Party, here in Texas, where we've won this state resoundingly, it's time for us to build a coalition of congressional districts that reflects our values and reflects what the voters are doing here in the state.
How concerned are you about these other states? California, I think, is going to be voting on basically trying to neutralize what Republicans did here.
Not at all, and we live here. This is where we live. So we need to be responsible and take care of what's going on in Texas. We don't need to worry about what's going on in California. They have significant hurdles that they need to overcome with a ballot initiative where they need 2/3 of the vote. I think we're going to be in good shape. This is an opportunity for Texans to have people representing them that reflect their values based on our political performance here.
You're an attorney now. The legal fight comes, right,
Yes.
over these maps.
It always comes.
Right. And so how does the state defend itself?
Well, the good news is that this is a process that started with those legal considerations. It was built out by lawyers in order to make sure that all of the appropriate laws and case law were reflected and followed in construction of the maps. We followed that to a T. There should be no problem with legal challenges in federal court.
you know, that one of the questions that came up repeatedly during the day was who actually came up with these maps? Who drew them? What do you know?
Yeah, legal team from DC, and it worked its way down here. So there's no question that the right people were looking at it with the right considerations over the Voting Rights Act and all the relevant case law, the Rucha case, Pettaway case.
And they had this law firm had ties to the White House?
No question.
And you know, a lot of people, you heard the Democrats really criticize President Trump over all this, and the fact that the White House was so involved. They've accused Republicans of just bending the knee. And so what do you say that? Because obviously the White House was involved. Yeah. And so why do you think that's okay?
Let me be super clear. There's nothing wrong with that. President Trump resoundingly won this state. We have an opportunity to redistrict mid-decade. It's obviously a little bit unusual, but we did it because we can do it. That's what our voters expect us to do. They expect us to act with courage when we have an opportunity to change the makeup of our congressional representation in the state, and that's exactly what we did here today.
Democrats are vowing a legal fight and will file suit against the state and the new congressional maps. We spoke with Representative Venton Jones of Dallas.
My most sincere reaction is disappointment. Once again, Republicans continue to make power grabs on the backs of black and brown communities who have fought for one of the most important issues that we have as Texans, and that's our right to vote. We're going to still continue to fight. We're going to take this to the courts, and we're going to take this all the way to the ballot box next November to continue our fight to make sure that we have equal and fair representation in this state and in our nation. What I'm taking my guidance from is from the people, and the people who came to the redistricting hearings to say enough is enough, the people who supported Democrats for making the quorum break, and the people who still continue to have their voices heard, that enough is enough when it comes to the power grabs that our Republicans are making on the backs of growing minority populations in this state.
Now, there were some Republicans who said that this was, I mean, all the Republicans have said this is based on political performance. And because in 2024, President Trump won, most of the counties along the Texas border supported him and they say this map is a reflection of that.
Absolutely.
So what do you say?
Even though political performance is allowed, Texans deserve more than a performance. They deserve lawmakers that are actually going to listen to them, that are actually going to hear them, and make sure that legislation actually speaks to the diversity that's represented in this state. That is not what's happening by my Republican colleagues, and what continues to make this very unfortunate once again.
And so as far as, you know, I know you're trying to get this in the courts now, but what have your constituents said? What have you heard from them during this entire process?
Well, I've heard from constituents of all ages, but what I think that is the most important to highlight are the constituents that actually survived the civil rights era.
Republican Representative Katrina Pierson of Rockwall rejected Democrats' accusations.
I'm very excited. My district is excited. The big, beautiful map is passed. Republican voters have spoken, and we've delivered on the governor's call.
You had some very strong language. You just spoke on the House floor, and you called your Democratic colleagues racist. So talk to me about that. That's strong language.
It's actually not strong language. It's language given right back to them. You know, my entire political career, 15 years now, I've heard the same rhetoric over and over and over again, but history shows that more and more minority voters are voting Republican. So the argument's just played out, or they're voting more Republican. So the argument is just really played out. I mean, I'm in a predominantly white district. They elected a black woman. I am sick of having my voters being called racist. I'm sick of having my party being called racist, and that's all they do. It's victimization all day, every day. There's no account for values, and that's what's most important. The people of Texas have spoken. In the last several cycles, minority voters are trending Republican, and that is how this map is drawn. It's perfectly legal. Of course they're going to take us to court, but we will win.
And that's what I was going to ask you about, because they vow to take it to court. They want to obviously get it before the U.S. Supreme Court, and I think the Supreme Court is taking up a separate case. But that really this comes down to the Voting Rights Act, and Democrats say these new maps trample that. You say otherwise. Why?
I do say otherwise because the laws have changed. We can draw maps based on political performance. That is what has happened. They don't like it. Again, it is because of the trends in Texas. President Trump won Hispanic voters in the state of Texas. These maps reflect 4 new Hispanic CVAP districts. It is a reflection of political performance, and they are struggling with the concept that they are losing support in minority voters.
Now, the Democrats point out that they've got 3 seats right now in North Texas, 30th, 32nd, 33rd congressional districts. Under these new maps, the 32nd congressional district, now represented by Democrat Julie Johnson, is going to become a Republican majority district. It's going to stretch all the way out to East Texas. And then 30 and 33 are going to be condensed a little bit they say, for African American members of Congress. And so what do you say to that? They say that that's just not being fair because the Latino vote and some African Americans may be splintered a little bit. What do you say to that accusation?
Well, I reject that. I mean, if you look at the map and you look at the breakup by percentage, the districts are now more compact. I encourage everyone to look at the current map versus the map we just passed and compare the 2 districts. The city of Richardson in District 32 is now whole. We have whole counties, whole cities. The maps are much more compact, which is less gerrymandering.
After Democrats returned to the Capitol Monday, Speaker Dustin Burrows told those who broke quorum he wanted to ensure they returned to the House chamber for Wednesday's vote on the new maps. So he required them to sign permission slips that would place them under the custody of the Texas Department of Public Safety. Democratic Representative Nicole Collier of Fort Worth refused to sign the slip and was told she could only stay in the House chamber or go to her office at the Capitol with an escort by DPS. She received national attention after sleeping in the chamber for 2 nights. After the vote, we spoke with Collier about her protest, why her fight on this isn't over, and about the vote.
They have racist implications, yes. It's racial gerrymandering, absolutely. I don't even know people recognize the ramifications, the impact that this vote has by dividing and cracking and packing communities of color. The whole purpose of creating these communities is so that you have a coalition, that you have a shared interest, and that you can do things together, like go to the grocery store, go to church, and you also can make decisions together, and that's through the ballot box. And together you can vote for the candidate of your choice. But what happened today, they're splitting that up. You will no longer vote with your neighbor. People across the street from you will no longer be connected. They are dividing communities. They're even splitting precincts because they don't want you to have your collective power. And so it's a sad day in Texas.
The Republicans say that they did not form this on race, they did not use race, but as a result of their new maps, they say there are 2 new black majority congressional districts in Texas where there weren't any before. And there are, I believe, 4 Latino majority districts now, which is more than what they had before. So what do you say to that?
Well, I think we already had some districts that were coalition districts that were able to choose a candidate of their choice. What's wrong with that? Do they not trust Texas voters to do that? No, instead, they want to surgically draw lines so that they can determine the outcome of an election with the people that they select. And that's just not fair. That's not the democratic process. You need to be able to trust the voters to elect the candidate that they want and keep them together in their same communities. That didn't happen today. Today, they just split that up. And so it's very disappointing to see that this is the trajectory that we're going, because they're just rigging elections.
Let's talk about you sleeping on the House floor for 2 nights. You did so because you wouldn't sign the permission slip to get that 24-hour DPS escort.
No, it's not just an escort. So let me make it very clear.
Yes.
The permission slip said, I agree to be released into the custody of the Department of Public Safety. Now that's different than having an escort. When you're in the custody of somebody, you're under their control. And if you're under the custody of law enforcement, it seems like you've done a crime. It signifies some type of criminal activity. I'm not a criminal. I have not done anything illegal by exercising my right to object. So I don't want to be subjected to the control of DPS. And so I refused.
What was the response that you received? I mean, who were you hearing from? Because this made national headlines.
Oh, I was really surprised because I was confined. I was on house arrest. I didn't know that this was all going on out here. People are sending me messages saying, oh, it's getting a lot of attention. And I was like, I had no idea, but I got a call from Vice President Kamala Harris, who was watching. She's watching and observing, and she's listening to the people in America. And that's what I want in my leader. We're getting such overwhelming response from people, because I just refuse. And a lot of people feel that way. They're just not, they feel like there's things that are going on that are wrong, and they don't know what to do. And in that moment, I just stood still, because I didn't know what to do. I really didn't. I just said, I don't want to do it. I refuse. I'm just going to stand here, my ground. I'm going to stand here. I went and sat at my desk and sat there for a minute, and then they noticed. They said, oh, you haven't signed the paper. And I said, I'm not signing it. And they didn't know what to do at that point. And then they said, no, you can't leave. You can't leave the premises unless you sign. So I was being held against my will. I was not going to agree to be in custody of law enforcement. And it was just a battle of wills at that point.
I believe you filed a lawsuit against having to stay.
Yeah.
And how do you think that's going to go? Because I would imagine the Republicans are just going to point to the Texas Constitution that says while Democrats or the minority faction in the legislature is entitled to, or it's enabled to break quorum, that just the Texas legislature is also can enforce quorum, and this was a way of enforcing quorum.
Yeah, the House rules?
Yeah.
The House rules does not talk about a rolling, because this is a moving type of enforcement. The House rules only talk about bringing someone to the floor. It doesn't talk about being tracked and trailed. It doesn't talk about that. So this is unprecedented.
The Texas Senate approved the maps Friday. Earlier in the week, I asked Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick about them. The Democrats say they're going to take it to court because they say it hurts members of the black and brown community. So I want to know what you say to that.
The 5 new Republican majority leaning seats, we believe for all the right reasons, legal reasons and the right reasons politically, that our state deserves those 5 additional seats because this state has changed dramatically.
Democrats say they are hoping the courts will block the new congressional maps, but while they delayed the maps for passing for 2 weeks, timing is now critical. The maps must be in place by the time candidates start filing their paperwork on November 8th, and the courts don't typically get involved right before or once that process begins. After the House vote, Governor Abbott added to the special session agenda, which includes asking for a bill to provide new punishments for any state lawmakers who are intentionally absent from a legislative session. Up next, lawmakers passed bills in response to the deadly Central Texas floods after emotional testimony from parents who lost their campers in the disaster. Welcome back to Eye on Politics. Now to the response to the deadly Central Texas flooding. The Texas House and Senate are each passing bills on installing emergency communications equipment to make sure people hear urgent messages to get to safety, requiring training for emergency preparedness, and improving safety at summer camps, particularly those in a floodplain. On Wednesday, parents who lost their children at Camp Mystic in Kerrville provided emotional testimony at the Capitol.
Obvious common sense safety measures were absent. Protocols that should have been in place were ignored. As a result, my daughter was stolen from us. Seal's life ended not because of an unavoidable act of nature, but because of preventable failures.
As her mother, I am haunted by the events that took place on July 4th and wish with every fiber of my being that I was here under different circumstances.
I don't understand House hearings, lobbyists, floor debates. What I do know is that my daughter should still be here. Her death was 100% preventable. Complacency, among other things, led to the deaths of 27 amazing, innocent, beautiful girls.
So difficult to hear the parents' testimony. Lawmakers are still working on approving other bills related to the flooding disaster, and they will make their way to the governor for his signature. Up next, why Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick felt compelled to announce his re-election again, even after President Trump endorsed him. When Eye on Politics comes right back. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick held a news conference last week in Austin, insisting he's all in and running for re-election, even after he announced it and received an endorsement from President Trump. Patrick said he wanted to end speculation that he was retiring.
Never considered not running. I don't know where all these crazy rumors came from. I'm running. I'm not stepping out.
The field of candidates in the Republican primary for Texas Attorney General is growing. Conservative Congressman Chip Roy of Central Texas announced he's jumping into the race. He joins State Senators Mays Middleton of Galveston and Joan Huffman of Houston, along with Aaron Reitz. Attorney General Ken Paxton is challenging Senator John Cornyn in the GOP primary for U.S. Senate. And remember, you can watch all the full interviews for this week's show on our CBS Texas YouTube page. And once you're there, please hit the subscribe button. And that's all for Eye on Politics for this Sunday. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again next week. I'm Jack Fink. I am listening, and we are listening to you at CBS News Texas. And from all of us here, have a great Sunday.